I want a divorce.
I don't mind, but I won't pay alimony. You don't have any money, since you don't work. Are you okay with that?
Protecting my happiness is much more important than money. I don't want to stay in this house, and moreover, I don't want to live with a man like you. I'll definitely get a divorce and make you pay. My name is Rachel, born and raised in the countryside. At 58, I enjoy gardening when it gets warm. I love the peaceful rural atmosphere, but there was a time in my life when I resented the countryside. I was in my 20s then. And after graduating from high school, I got a job at a local department store that was said to only accept elite students. And I think I lived a more glamorous life than others my age. One day, my boss told me that a valued customer was coming and assigned me to serve accompany that person. And that person was my husband, Evan. His family had a Congress representative, and even though Evan wasn't directly related to him, his family ran extensive businesses locally. Being the eldest son, Evan was set to inherit the family and its business, making him influential in the area. But there are many competitive businesses in the field. It may be hard to succeed if they decide to expand their business into the city. However, despite having many competitors, he was almost like a local king. Because of my assignment to show him around the store, he took a liking to me. People around me said things like, "You're so lucky," "I'm jealous," and "Your future is secure." But I wasn't happy at all. The Spencer family, Evan's family, had a lot of bad rumors. They were said to be arrogant, quick to fire employees they didn't like, and known for secretly approaching cute female employees and making many of them their lovers. I had no idea what was true, but where there's smoke, there's fire. There must have been some problems. Evan's approach was persistent. No, intense. He would often wait in his car outside my workplace when I was about to go home. He gave me bouquets and took me to fancy restaurants, expressing his affection in various ways. As I got to know him, I started to think he might be a sincere and good person despite the rumors, and we began dating. This led to our marriage. Right after we got married, his parents gave us a house as a wedding gift. I was taken aback since all I knew was to give more modest wedding gifts. Watching my husband accepting it as if it were natural, it reminded me that we lived in different worlds. I never imagined this house would become a virtual devil's den. Once I started living under the same roof as my husband, his mother frequently visited our home. Her visits had no specific purpose. She just vented about her husband all day. Apparently, she had a lot of grievances against him. She would complain endlessly about him not paying attention to her, being ungrateful, or how he behaved during a fight 10 years ago. Her complaints extended beyond her husband to the way the driver spoke, the secretary's attitude, and even the neighbor's clothes. Listening to such complaints repeatedly was stressful. I was told a daughter-in-law of the Spencer family should not work outside unless she helps with the business. So I had to quit my job at the department store after getting married, leaving me no way to avoid her visits. Her visits, which used to be mostly on weekdays when my husband was not around, gradually extended to weekends. This was a problem. Despite being newlyweds, my husband began to spend more time away from home. His mother adored him and had high standards for his wife, requiring me to be someone she approved of. I wasn't highly educated, from a prestigious family, or good at housework, but apparently my face and modest demeanor were appreciated. A Spencer wife shouldn't be an assertive woman and must always walk a few steps behind her husband. And perhaps my opposite from flashy appearance was appreciated. For the first time, maybe my monolid turned out to be useful too. I can't bring myself to say, "You told me that story before," because she took my natural fear of talking to people from influential families as modesty. 6 months into the marriage, my husband rarely came home, and I began to wonder if I married him or his mother. One night I discovered my husband was cheating. I accidentally saw him kissing a woman in the back seat of the company car through the window when he returned home. The driver didn't seem particularly disturbed. Once my husband finished his interaction with the woman, the car smoothly drove away as if the driver was used to my husband's infidelity. "Hey, Who was that just now? Naturally, I confronted my husband, who entered the house nonchalantly. I couldn't forgive infidelity less than a year into our marriage, especially after his intense pursuit before marriage. However, his reaction was far from what I expected.
Don't make a fuss over just 1 or 2 women. Now go and get my dinner ready.
I was speechless as he removed his tie and headed for the living room. He wasn't even trying to hide it, but instead brazenly dismissed it. Wait, explain. Who was that woman?
Shut up. She's from work. She's new, so I'm looking after her.
But you're a manager, right? That's not your job. What exactly are you taking care of?
Oh, I'm tired. Be quiet.
He forcefully shook off my hand and pushed me by the shoulder, making me fall back.
Go and cool off. I'm going to go take a bath because I'm in a bad mood.
Leaving only a cold glance, he actually went to take a bath. The sound of the shower echoed emptily in the room, making me deeply regret why I married such a person. The next day, my mother-in-law came to the house as usual, but she was clearly in a bad mood. The first thing she said to me was, "Rachel, sit down." What? As I stood there confused, the secretary who had come into the room with her forcibly held me down and made me kneel on the floor. What is this?
I heard you yelled at Evan last night when he was tired from work. Is that something a wife should do?
How do you know about that? But Evan was kissing a woman in front of the house. It's only natural to ask what that was about.
Evan told me to give you a stern lesson. A woman of the Spencer family would tolerate 1 or 2 women outside.
Tolerate infidelity? You're telling me to turn a blind eye?
Noblemen in the old days kept many women as mistresses. That's what it means to hold power.
I couldn't accept it. This family was definitely strange. That's enough. I'm going to divorce Evan. The moment I said it, tears welled up for the first time. Despite everything, I had liked my husband. I never imagined on our wedding day that I would be betrayed like this and choose to leave. However...
That's absurd. What are you saying?
My mother-in-law's fierce tone made me shrink back. After a deep sigh, she took out her phone and made a call.
Hello? Sorry, but could you come home for a bit? Is that okay? All right, see you soon.
Hanging up, she glared at me and said,
We'll take you to our house.
I resisted, but the secretary forcibly dragged me into the car and took me to my in-laws' house. Or rather, to the shed of my in-laws' house. Soon after we arrived, my father-in-law appeared. The person my mother-in-law had called was my father-in-law.
I heard you want a divorce?
He sneered as he asked. Yes.
Sorry, but we can't allow that. We don't want a scandal about a Spencer being left by his wife.
I don't care, As I tried to argue, my father-in-law grabbed my hair.
Listen, my words and Evan's words are absolute. You have no right to refuse. Cool your head until you understand that.
With that, he roughly released my hair, making me stagger backward.
Let's go,
he said, and my mother-in-law left with him saying,
Good luck.
Hearing the lock click shut, I realized I was trapped. I pounded on the door and screamed, Let me out! But the secretary-like person just said,
I can't do that,
through the door and ignored me afterward. 12 hours later, locked in the hot and humid shed, I was on the verge of dehydration when I was finally released. My mother-in-law handed me a bottle of water, asking,
Has your head cooled down?
I drank the water desperately, feeling nauseous and completely exhausted. Far from cooling down, I couldn't think at all. Led inside the house by my mother-in-law, I saw my husband and a woman sitting beside him.
Have you reflected on your actions, Rachel? If you've understood your mistake, I'm willing to forgive you. I mean, I like you too.
Seeing my husband smile, I felt a chill down my spine. There's no use in trying to communicate with this person.
Also, from today, this person will live with us. This is Kate, so get along.
Looking at the woman, a scene floated into my hazy mind. This was the woman Evan had kissed. What are you thinking? Why should I live with your affair partner?
Hey, do you have a problem with that?
Of course I do. This is wrong. This house is crazy. Not just you, but your mother and father too. All of you. The air in the room froze after my words, but I didn't think I was wrong at all.
You dare insult not just Evan, but his father as well.
My husband cut in to calm my furious mother-in-law.
You said you wanted a divorce, right? Do you understand what will happen to you and your family if you do?
I glared back at my husband's cold stare. I'll do it. Divorce me.
Fine, but I won't pay any alimony. You don't have money since you don't work, right? Can you manage?
My husband smirked, thinking I would come back if he dangled money in front of me. That must have worked before. I don't mind. I want a divorce. With a sigh, my husband told his affair partner.
Get the paper from the right side of the drawer.
She got up, took the paper from the drawer, and handed it to my husband as instructed.
Here, my father told me to keep this as a threat in case something happened. I've already signed it. Use it as you like.
He handed me a signed divorce paper. Good, I can cut ties with this family immediately.
Make sure you don't regret it.
I won't, no worries. Dragging my exhausted body, I was headed to the city office to file the divorce papers.
Wait, even if you're going to become a stranger, it would be shameful for a woman once related to a Spencer to be seen walking outside a night alone. Use our car. I'll assign a driver.
I grimaced openly at my father-in-law's words, suspecting they planned to trap me somewhere again. At that moment, Madison, a secretary, raised her hand. I'll go. She had accompanied me on all my shopping trips since the marriage.
Fine, you go.
My father-in-law ordered, and I, trusting Madison, got into the car and submitted the divorce papers. 2 weeks later, I suddenly got a call from my ex-husband who yelled at me right off the bat.
Don't mess with me.
What is it all of a sudden?
Don't play dumb. You're the culprit, aren't you? Because of you, we're losing clients left and right. What are you going to do about it?
Oh my, that's exactly what I intended, I'm glad. I chuckled, and he got even more frustrated.
I'll destroy your family.
He shouted over the phone. In fact, when I submitted the divorce papers, Madison handed me a pen in the car saying,
Please use this.
The contents were videos of me being scolded by my mother-in-law over my husband's affair, forcibly taken to the car by the secretary and locked in the shed. There were also videos of my husband saying he wanted to live with his affair partner. Madison's sister had been almost forced into becoming my father-in-law's lover, and when she refused, she was fired from their group company. Madison and her sister had different last names because their parents had divorced and they each took one parent's name. That's why no one realized they were sisters, and Madison had been waiting for an opportunity for revenge. She always carried a pen-shaped miniature camera in her breast pocket to capture any scene that may be useful in the future.
Rachel, the treatment you received was too cruel. You're kind, always thanking even the secretaries. With this, your family will be safe. Use it however you like.
Saying this, she entrusted me with the data. Thus, armed with perfect material, I contacted a friend who worked at a publishing company. I intended to expose the true nature of that family. I had planned to do this after the divorce in the first place, but having evidence of the horrible treatment I received was invaluable. I sold the data to a magazine company, and the cruel reality of the family spread not only through magazines and newspapers, but also on social media. Given the family's connection to a Congress representative, it was no surprise that people would be interested in such a scandalous story.
Why did you have to expose even my parents' affairs?
I just wanted to bring all the filth of your family to light. If any power remained with your family, you'd ruin my family, right? I took up the sword to protect my family. Got a problem with that? During my daily lessons listening to my mother-in-law's complaints, she had confided about her lovers. Originally, she had an affair to get back at her husband for cheating. Even at 68, her lover was in his 20s, and she lavished him with gifts. She used to say,
If it weren't for this family's constraints, we'd be together already.
But to her lover, she was just a wallet. She had had many lovers over the years, so it was a tit-for-tat situation.
Now, my father wants to divorce my mother. It's your fault.
Isn't the Spencer family supposed to stay married? Changing your stance so easily when you can't endure it anymore? Your father's quite small-minded.
Shut up. You can't talk big when you're the cause of all this.
Cause? Don't make me laugh. It's your parents' rampant infidelity that's to blame, and your affair that led to our divorce.
What am I supposed to do if this house collapses? I'm the only one who has to inherit and rebuild the family business. I'll lose everything.
His voice was getting tearful. It was his own fault, so I found his whining pathetic. If you're so attached to the house and company, then work hard and rebuild it from scratch. Don't you have any spirit to start over? It's pathetic that you can't do anything without an advantage from the beginning.
Shut up. You can't understand the pressure of living up to expectations as the sole heir.
Do you really think you were the only one expected to inherit everything?
Of course.
Well, okay. You're the only decent son.
What do you mean? I'm an only child and you know that.
No, you have a half-brother.
That's a lie. What are you talking about?
Right after our divorce, I hired a detective through my parents' connections. But your family is so famous that information came out without needing a detective.
And this leads to me having a brother? Huh, ridiculous. I've never heard such a thing.
As he got angrier, I calmly explained his brother's existence. But it's true. You know Amelia Jones, the maid? Your father had a child with her. My ex-husband was speechless.
Amelia? With her?
Hearing a familiar name, he seemed to lean into the conversation. Yes, but he didn't acknowledge the child. Your mother, who was then newly married and childless, was very upset. Even when your mother was pregnant with you, your father favored his firstborn son and wanted him to inherit the family business. He even said so publicly. But when that didn't happen, he reluctantly had you as the heir. Your family's story is like a drama series, isn't it? In a small voice, my ex-husband muttered.
This can't be true.
His tone indicated that he no longer thought I was lying. So here's a question for you.
Huh?
He seemed displeasured by my sarcastic tone. Who is the true Spencer family heir?
What do you mean?
Well, you're a child from your mother's affair.
What?
Knowing about Amelia's pregnancy, your mother had an affair with the then driver and got pregnant with you.
That can't be true.
It is. Your father doesn't know, but there were people who knew about your mother's affair with your biological father.
No. I'm the rightful heir, or else all the things I've been through would be a waste.
He screams like a child. No, Amelia's son is the rightful heir, because you're not related to your father by blood. You can confirm it with a DNA test if you doubt me. It'll be interesting to see how you handle a family and company that's technically not even yours. Good luck then. Bye. I couldn't hide the smile that crept onto my face as I cheerily hung up. He was too shocked to say anything. After that, my leak led to more magazines exposing my ex-husband's family scandals. Not only was it revealed that he wasn't a Spencer by blood, but also his father's tax evasion and his mother's verbal abuse of the driver came to light. As a result, his family's downfall was quicker than I anticipated, and their business was shut down. In the local community, they became known as a despicable family, and now they've scattered and live humbly. Even though the relatives managed to live modestly, my ex-husband, whose face and name were publicized, struggled to find a job. He tried to order former subordinates to find him work, but no one listened to him, powerless, and this act was also published in magazines. Now, he's jobless. His parents divorced and remain unemployed, fighting over alimony. They were a wretched family till the end. Meanwhile, I begged and was rehired at the department store where I worked before marriage. I worked diligently, telling myself never to marry again, and got promotions as I got older and older. In my later years, I attended a school reunion and got along well with a classmate who was attending for the first time. Despite many invitations, he never joined reunions until he was in his 40s. He's not good with people and is quiet, but I found his unpretentious nature trustworthy and got married soon after. Our marriage is going well so far. My first marriage was tough, but it helped me see through people better and find my current husband after being single for a while. In that sense, my life hasn't been all bad. I even grew to feel grateful to my ex-husband.
My husband suddenly brought his sister and niece home, declaring, "I'll support them. If you don't like it, then leave." I agreed and left.
One day, when I returned home with my husband to the house we lived in together, his sister and niece were there. I was surprised to see the two whom I rarely interacted with. My husband then said,
I will be supporting these two from today.
disregarding all of my, he arrogantly declared to me,
I'm the head of this household, so you better listen to me.
It seemed my husband was underestimating that I would not divorce him. However, having completely lost my affection, I promptly handed him divorce papers. One day, my husband suddenly brought his sister and niece to live with us. He demanded that I should take care of them as his wife, resulting in our divorce. I am an office worker who's 33 years old this year. I've been married to my current husband for 3 years, and we still don't have any children. Actually, this is my second marriage. My first marriage was when I was 20 years old, but that marriage only lasted a year. My ex-husband was a philanderer, and that's why we divorced. Mika, you're divorced once before. Well, that's not uncommon these days. But getting married for the first time at 20 is quite early, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. These days, many people get married after crossing 30. Was there any particular reason you wanted to get married so early? When I was little, I lost my parents in an accident and have been raised in a foster home ever since. I hardly have any memories of my parents, and I don't have any other relatives or siblings to rely on. So I've always longed for my own family. Maybe that's why I had such a strong desire to get married. Right after high school, I started working and left the facility, feeling lonely on my own, which might also be one of the reasons. Anyway, I wanted to get married and start a family early on. So my first marriage, I was quite assertive about it. But rushing into marriage was a mistake. My ex-husband quickly grew tired of married life and cheated, and I was constantly picking fights, venting my frustrations. By the time we divorced, I was completely exhausted, mentally and physically. Oh, becoming family with someone else is so tough. I realized that. At the tender age of 21. So since then, I completely lost my desire to get married. But then 3 years ago, I decided to marry again. It was when I met my current husband. Until then, I was absorbed in my work and hobbies, and there was no talk of relationships at all. A friend who was worried about me introduced me to my husband, and our relationship progressed smoothly. My husband is just really kind. He understands that I lost my parents early and grew up in a facility, and that I was previously married and divorced due to my ex-husband's infidelity. Do you think that's a bit sad? Is that a problem? Regarding my past,
Mika, you've really worked hard all this time. Despite everything that's happened, you've endured it alone. I love that strong side of you, Mika, but from now on, I'll protect you.
That's what he said to me. He was very enthusiastic about marrying me. And yeah, I was really happy to hear those words from my husband. I felt the desire to start a family again. We decided to get married after dating for just half a year. After that, everything went smoothly. We were both working and enjoying life together, but there was something that bothered me a bit. It was regarding his relationship with his family. And since I don't have a family of my own, I found that aspect a bit challenging. Dealing with in-laws can be tough. What exactly was bothering you? Were your husband's parents mean or something? Were they subtly rude? No, I think my husband's parents are good people. At least that's what I assume. But I don't know them well enough because we don't interact much. Even when we registered our marriage, my husband handled it with just a phone call. At that time, I greeted them directly over the phone. From our conversation then, they seemed serious and nice. But since then, we really haven't had any interaction at all. My husband doesn't even go back to his parents' house for summer break or New Year. Wow, that's such a peculiar family relationship. Are you on bad terms? Are they estranged? Is your husband an only child? If so, his parents must feel lonely. It's really strange, huh? I started wondering if it's normal not to be this involved. I even asked my husband about it.
I don't really like my parents. They're what you might call toxic parents. That's why I prefer not to have much to do with them.
He kept saying things like that. And you know, my husband has a sister, but she seems to be just like him. She never goes back to their parents' house either. They really seem like a dysfunctional family. Are his parents that terrible? If his sister avoids them too, could it be true about toxic parents? Did you have any interaction with his sister's family? According to my husband, his father was really strict and he was constantly being unfairly scolded. He also mentioned a few years ago his parents managed his salary and he hardly had any money to spend freely. With parents this awful, I don't blame him for not wanting you involved. He said it was to protect me. That's what he told me. As for his sister's family, my husband actually gets along quite well with his sister. They used to have long phone conversations all the time. But since his sister and her husband live out of town, they hardly ever meet, so I never really got to know them. When I talked to my sister-in-law on the phone a few times, and she was always rapid-fire, talking about her dissatisfaction with her own husband, I always found it difficult to respond. It was like that. To be honest, I was a little uncomfortable. My husband says my sister-in-law had a baby 5 years ago and left my parents-in-law's house because she ran away from home, and her husband is actually 10 years younger than her. He was still a teenager when they got married. My husband said this about him.
He's a wishy-washy, unreliable guy. He doesn't have a degree, works at a low-paying company, and I wonder if he can support a wife and kids with this. That's why I worry about my sister and keep in touch with her.
My husband would say things like that. Looking back now, it seems like he was either worried about or maybe even looking down on his sister's family. Well, because of all that, my husband and I really are on our own. We've spent our days without any involvement from relatives. Even so, there weren't any issues between us, and until our 2nd year of marriage, everything was pretty normal. But because of my husband's unbelievable thoughts and actions, those normal days gradually fell apart. One day when I came home from work, there were 2 people in the house besides my husband. Huh? Who? I thought to myself. Those people turned out to be my sister-in-law and niece, whom I was meeting for the first time.
Ah, Mika, welcome back. You're back late from work. I've been waiting for dinner.
Welcome back, Mika. Hurry up and make dinner. My sister and niece are starving.
Meeting my sister-in-law for the first time, who seemed unusually relaxed, and my husband who offered no explanation, my mind was in turmoil. Moreover, there was a large amount of luggage that seemed to belong to my sister-in-law and niece, and I had a really bad feeling about it. So I called my husband into another room to ask him. Did you know your sister was coming today? I was surprised because I didn't hear anything about it.
No, I got a call from my sister this morning out of the blue, and that's when we decided. Apparently, she's divorced. That's why she left her home and has nowhere else to go. So from now on, the 4 of us will live together. I'll support my sister and niece from today. Is that okay?
Huh? Is that okay? Who decided this on their own? And why is it up to you to support them?
Because she's my family, you know? There's nothing wrong with that, right?
No, your sister is already an adult, so even if she's divorced, she can work for herself, right? Besides, isn't there child support? I don't think you have an obligation to support them.
Huh? Are you always this cold-hearted? Seriously, I'm really fed up with such cold-hearted remarks.
No, I think it's perfectly reasonable. Your sister-in-law isn't a helpless child.
Ugh, this is why you... Maybe you just don't understand family love. You have a heart of stone.
What's going on? Isn't your husband becoming aggressive? Was he always the type to push his opinions forcefully? He seems to have changed quite a bit. I thought he understood Mika's situation, but... Did you realize after all? You noticed, right? Yeah, my husband has changed. He was really kind at first. He accepted me, even though I have no parents and I'm divorced. But he changed over the past half year. It started gradually after I began to out-earn him, completely due to my steady career advancement. He graduated from college and started working, so initially he earned more than me, even though I've been working longer than him since high school. Moreover, he holds a higher position than me. I'm just a regular employee. He used to say things like,
Mika, you're working so hard even though you only graduated from high school. Your hard work will surely be recognized someday.
But after we got married and I started achieving more at work, he began to make subtle sarcastic remarks.
Mika, don't get so enthusiastic about your work. I think it's not good for a woman to work so aggressively.
And then,
don't get all excited and overshadow college graduates. You should know your place.
That's how it went. It seemed like my husband didn't like my promotion. Ah, is Jim feeling pressured by the capable Mika? Or maybe jealousy? It seems like Jim actually looked down on Mika. He can't accept Mika getting ahead of him. That's right, I thought so too. My husband actually looked down on me as a pitiful woman and thought, isn't it wonderful that I married such a pitiful woman? Maybe he was thinking something like that. Perhaps he felt a sense of superiority from marrying a loser like me in life. But I didn't let my husband's petulant words get the better of me, and I steadily worked my way up the ladder. And finally, my salary surpassed my husband's. Lately, my husband has been checking my salary with keen interest, so I even hid my payslips. It's his obsession, and he found out. And since then, my husband has become incredibly cold towards me. Up until now, we shared household chores because we both worked, but somehow he started pushing most of them onto me, even when I expressed my dissatisfaction about it.
You're just focused on work. Don't you think about supporting your husband? Mika, usually wives support their husbands, Maybe you just don't understand family dynamics. Maybe that's why your first marriage failed.
I started receiving snide remarks about 100 times worse. That comeback really hit me hard. Even though I've advanced in my career, I never thought of it as winning against my husband. Actually, I thought he'd be happy for me. But because my husband suddenly turned cold towards me, I've recently started thinking about divorcing him. Still, I wanted to avoid divorce if possible, hoping that maybe if we talked things through, we'd understand each other. I spent restless days hoping for that. Honestly, I was hesitant about going through a second divorce. That's when my sister-in-law showed up. My husband used the fact that I don't have any family to weaponize against me and hurt me deeply.
Look, I don't think you, Mika, understand this, but family is about helping each other, especially in times of need. Right now, my sister is really struggling with her divorce from her ex-husband. That's why I need to help her out. That's just how it is, family ties.
Jim was lecturing me like he knew best, but it didn't affect me at all. He just wants to feel superior to me. I already knew his intentions. And while I was feeling so overwhelmed, my sister-in-law was sprawled out on the couch, munching on snacks and tapping away at her phone. She didn't even seem to notice my niece jumping around the room, and she just seemed to be doing whatever she wanted. My sister-in-law doesn't seem to be at all overwhelmed. What was the cause of the divorce in the first place?
You might not see it, but she should be struggling. The cause of the divorce? It's because of that unreliable husband, isn't it?
You don't even know the reason for the divorce? Anyway, why don't you consult your parents? Don't make such important decisions solely on your own judgment. How about discussing it with all the important members of your family?
I told you my parents are toxic, so I have to handle my sister's situation somehow. Anyway, helping out a sister in need is something that's normal for family, or rather, for any decent person. Since you're also part of my family, you should cooperate in supporting my sister. Once you get that, hurry up and make dinner. My sister and niece are hungry.
So both you and your sister-in-law are adults now, so if you're hungry, why don't you figure it out yourselves? Why do you have to wait until I finish my work, and then order me to make it?
Oh, shut up. That's your duty as a wife, isn't it? You're just using work as an excuse to avoid it. What's the big deal about a little promotion? Do you think you've won against me because of that?
I don't think the promotion has anything to do with this. Anyway, this whole thing is a little too selfish.
It's not too selfish. I'm the head of this household. So what I say goes absolutely. Got it? Since my sister is here too, don't embarrass me. Fulfill your duties as a wife. Otherwise, it's divorce. I want you to leave right now.
My husband said that like he had made a point again with that smug face. He seemed to think I would back down if he mentioned divorce, thinking I'd do whatever he said. He seemed to have seen through my feelings that I didn't want a second divorce. But with this husband's arrogant attitude, my mind was already made up, so I told him that. I understand. Let's get divorced. Fine, I'll leave then. I'll get things ready right away. Then my husband looked stunned, like he had pie thrown on his face.
Huh? Divorce? Is that okay? Divorce?
He said in a silly voice. There's no mistake about the divorce. I'll go get divorce papers from the city office tomorrow.
Huh? Can we really get divorced? You'll be divorced twice, Aren't you embarrassed?
Not at all. I'm totally fine with it. It's my decision.
Well, what will society say? And besides, if you divorce me, you'll be alone again, right? After all, I made you part of my family when you were all alone. You'll be alone again. Is that really okay? You should reconsider.
I made you part of my family? Huh? How much did he look down on you, Mika? That shameless sister-in-law and husband are awful. If you stay with this family, you'll definitely struggle. Yeah, I understand my husband's thoughts very well now, so I've decided to quit the family for good and get a divorce. So despite my husband nagging about it afterwards, I hurried along with packing and moving out. And then I told my husband, what society thinks doesn't matter. This is a decision for my own happiness. Besides, being alone is fine by me. Being all alone in the world is no big deal. I have work colleagues and friends. That's enough for me. I don't need such a worthless family. With that declaration, I left promptly. My husband kept ranting, but I ignored him. After that, I went to a friend's house and explained the situation, and they agreed to let me stay for a while. I also took a couple days off from work to find a new place and handle the divorce procedures. Then, the next evening, I received a call from my husband, who sounded like he was on the verge of tears.
Mika, won't you come back? And could you take care of our niece? It's really tough right now.
Why? What about my sister-in-law?
Well, you see, when I woke up this morning, my sister wasn't there. There was just a note saying, please take care of our niece. She's only 5 years old, so she can't stay home alone. My sister hasn't come back at all, so now I've had to take time off work to take care of her. I have no idea how to handle kids. Right now she's crying and saying she's hungry, asking for something to eat. I'm at my wit's end. What should I do?
Listening to this, I became certain. The cause of the divorce must be my sister-in-law, because she suddenly dumped the care of her niece on my husband, who had no previous relationship with her niece whatsoever, and then disappeared somewhere. Whether she went out to play or ran away, I don't know the details, but either way it's terrible. He asked me what he should do. She's your niece, after all.
We're family, you need to do something about it. Mika, how can you be so cold-hearted? Do you have no compassion?
Well, as you pointed out, I don't have a family.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mika, I said something terrible. I apologize. Can you please help me?
No way, no way. I'm not family with you anymore, so it's none of my business. Saying that, I promptly hung up the phone on my husband. Then I immediately made a call to someone. Because my little niece is innocent, I acted only to protect her. As for what happened next, I left it all up to those people. That sister-in-law is a real piece of work. If Mika had stayed at home, she would have ended up taking care of that niece, huh? Whom did Mika seek help from? Her in-laws? The niece's father? I contacted both of them. Both the in-laws and my sister-in-law's husband, since they're all family to my niece. I explained the situation and also gave them my husband's address. After that, it seems both the in-laws and my sister-in-law's husband rushed over right away, and they seemed to have comforted the crying niece with delicious food. Actually, my husband and sister-in-law used to be notorious troublemakers in the neighborhood when they were younger. Apparently, their father used to scold them harshly whenever they did something wrong, not because he was a toxic parent, but because he was trying to correct their behavior as normal parents do. And it turns out that the reason the in-laws managed my husband's salary was because he had borrowed money from shady places. They were just making sure he repaid it properly. Despite this, my husband and sister-in-law left home, complaining about my in-laws being annoying and such, and didn't even disclose where they were living. I learned these facts when the in-laws came to apologize after the divorce. Later, when everyone, including the in-laws and my sister-in-law's husband, gathered at home, my sister-in-law returned home. Apparently, she had been out with someone dressed up with heavy makeup. The cause of the divorce revealed there was indeed my sister-in-law. It turns out it was because of my sister-in-law's affair. Apparently, her husband was planning to seek custody, and he had been proceeding with various procedures, but my sister-in-law took my niece and hid with my husband without permission. If she could live with my husband, she could receive allowances and child support. I think that's what she was counting on. That's awful. I feel sorry for the child. Was your husband really intending to shelter such an outrageous person? Supporting a troubled family, isn't that wonderful? Was he just trying to assert dominance over you, Mika, because he lost in terms of income? Yeah, that's right. Certainly, since my husband felt inferior in terms of income to me, maybe he wanted to assert superiority in other ways. I always thought that marriage meant equality between husband and wife, but it seems there are people who always want to stand above their wives. Well, I don't think everyone is that awful. I guess I was just too naive in my judgment of men. I guess I brought it on myself to end up divorced twice. But oh well, I can live happily alone. After that, I filed for divorce through a lawyer with my husband. I couldn't claim any compensation, but I felt refreshed after the divorce. Now I can focus wholeheartedly on my work. And then my husband and sister-in-law was severely scolded by my in-laws, and it seems my sister-in-law was taken back to her parents' house. Because she was demanded compensation for her affair, my in-laws supervised her and helped her repay it. And my sister-in-law's husband took custody of the niece. My sister-in-law's husband really stepped up. He's only 25 years old. I'm sure he worked hard for the sake of the child. It seems he's doing well in his job and has a stable income too. Most importantly, my husband's niece looked so relieved to see her dad. In the future, my in-laws also said they would support him while raising my niece alone. I see, I'm glad for the niece. Your sister-in-law's husband is still young but impressive. It's just those two, your husband and sister-in-law, who are hopeless. Will those two ever reform? Yeah, that's right, reform. I wonder if that'll happen. Hopefully this time it will wake them up. Oh, this is a follow-up story, by the way. Let me report it. My husband and I met through a friend, and I explained the circumstances of this divorce to the friend who introduced us. And then that friend apparently spread it around to everyone. It seems like they're saying this and that about it, and that gossip even reached my husband's workplace. My husband is being looked at with disapproval there too, and it seems he feels quite uncomfortable. Oh, Mika's friend, you spoke out for her. You must have been angry that your important friend Mika was hurt. This is a great punishment for her husband, who pretended to be a nice guy. But I think he'll reflect on this a lot. That's right. If he reflects on this, maybe my being twice divorced will have been worth it. It would be good if my husband understands that looking down on others is not a good thing. I'm fed up with marriage already, but I have work and friends. So this isn't loneliness, right? That's why I will continue to live strong from now on. Thank you all for listening. Mika's husband lectured her on the meaning of family despite her having none. It seems he tried to gain the upper hand in Mika matters and dominate Mika. However, Mika had a job and trusted friends. She already knew that family wasn't everything. So Mika decisively left her husband, who constantly belittled her. Mika's future looks bright and positive now. Despite how tough life may seem from the outside, those living it should take pride in themselves. Happiness isn't the same for everyone. Each person's life and happiness are unique.
When I opposed my husband supporting his ex-girlfriend who had recently become single, he called me heartless. So I left with the children.
My husband felt completely good about himself being relied upon by his ex-girlfriend who had become single and her daughter. In the end, he prioritized his ex-girlfriend's daughter over our own son and started verbally abusing me when I criticized him for it. Things had reached a point where I didn't need my husband Bobby anymore. Having made up my mind, I decided to get rid of my husband. Of course, I left my good-for-nothing husband with a parting gift of proper revenge. So, what happened to my husband and his ex-girlfriend after that? My husband prioritized his ex-girlfriend who had become single and her daughter. Having decided I didn't need such a husband, I got rid of him. My oldest son, who's 4 years old, has become so dependable lately that I am extremely impressed with him every day. After meals, he carries the bowls to the sink and then wipes the table. Most of all, what helps me the most is how good he is at keeping his younger brother happy. When my 1-year-old's younger son is crying loudly while I'm busy, he immediately comes to soothe him. He makes funny faces, dances, pats his younger brother gently, and cuddles with him with love. I find my eldest son's bravery so endearing. He's my daily source of strength. Now I am single and raising my children while working. So honestly, there are times when it's really tough, but with such adorable sons by my side, I feel like I have to do my best as their mom. He's such a thoughtful son. It's amazing that he's so dependable at just 4 years old. He has a bright future ahead of him. A single mother with a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old? That must be tough. What's the father doing? My older son has grown so much now that he's 4, but he definitely went through the terrible 2s and the teenager phase. He would throw tantrums, lie down on the sidewalk, and refuse to get up, eat, or sleep. There was also a period of severe regression, but now he seems to have settled down. Maybe he sensed how hard it was for me as a single mom. Or maybe as a child he picked up on something from the harsh words my ex-husband said. The father of my kids, my ex-husband turned into a complete loser. Today, I'll talk about my journey to divorcing that man. I'd love for everyone to hear this story. I got married at 30, had my older son at 31, and my younger son at 34. I had heard it was tough, but raising 2 kids is really challenging. The difference between having 1 and 2 kids is huge. I felt it deeply. When they both cried at the same time, I would go into a mini panic. Honestly, I don't even remember how I managed to handle it at all. I understand. Even with just 1 more child, life becomes tens of times more difficult. Did the loser husband not help with childcare? Is that why you got divorced? Absolutely. My older son regressed to baby-like behavior, and my newborn was so fussy. Every day I was frantically taking care of them, but I managed because I love my 2 kids so much. Then there was my husband. When childcare got really hectic, he stopped helping completely. Actually, he started pulling away from childcare gradually when our older son hit the terrible 2s. I think he found it easier to handle when our son was a cute, quiet baby. But as soon as he started having his own will and became more demanding, my husband just ran away from the responsibility. Wow, what a terrible father. It's a difficult but adorable stage. And Monica, wasn't that right after you gave birth? A husband who runs away from childcare at such a time is just awful. Well, there was another reason why my husband pulled away from childcare and lost interest in our family. During that time, my husband fell in love. The object of his affection was Abby, a former colleague and ex-girlfriend. Abby got married to someone other than my husband 6 years ago and left the company when she did, but it seems she got divorced and came back to the company as a part-timer. Then she and my husband reconnected, and it seems they hit it off again. You might wonder how I found out about my husband's affair. Well, my husband, in his excitement, told me all about it. Didn't he have any friends to confide in? He ended up telling me everything. When Abby returned to the company as a part-timer,
My former colleague Abby came back. Wow, it's nostalgic. Abby hasn't changed at all. Even though Abby has a daughter, she doesn't look like a tired mom at all. Meanwhile, Monica, you've kind of let yourself go lately. It's amazing how different people can be, even when they're both moms.
He said all this out of the blue. At that time, I had just given birth to our younger son, and our older son was in the midst of the terrible twos and regressing to baby-like behavior. Looking good was the last thing on my mind. Wow, your husband is the worst. That's not something you say to a wife who's doing her best with childcare. You sometimes hear stories about men like this. If he wants his wife to look good, he should help with the childcare. Exactly. I'm glad you understand. I told my husband exactly what everyone is saying, and then he said,
Come on, I was just stating the facts. Abby's a single mom and still manages to look that good. Monica, maybe you're just slacking off a bit too much. Don't get all hysterical just because I hit a sore spot.
Can you believe he said that? Those words almost made me lose it, but I didn't want to argue in front of the kids, so I decided to stay silent. Did my husband think I agreed with him, or did he think he had won the argument? After that, he kept talking about Abby to me non-stop.
Today, Abby was wearing clothes that really showed off her figure. You'd never guess she had a child with that body.
He would say these creepy old man things.
Today, at lunch, Abby and I were reminiscing about the old days. It felt like I was time traveling.
He would talk about it in this dreamy way. I was just sitting there thinking, what am I even listening to? But I was so overwhelmed with childcare that even though I really wanted to call him out on it, I just brushed it off with, yeah, now go play with our older son. More than anything, I just wanted him to participate in childcare. Well, no matter how I asked for his help with our sons, my husband always found some excuse to avoid it. One day, after days like that had gone on for a while, I finally confronted him about it. That day, my husband started talking about Abby as usual, but the content.
Today I met Abby's daughter, Becky, at her house. Becky is so cute. She welcomed me so nicely. She kind of reminded me of myself. Maybe she's my kid. She's already 5 years old now.
It was like this. I couldn't help but react to this story in various ways. I've had things I've wanted to say for a while now. Indeed, this time I can't just let this slide. Why was he even at Abby's house? And the bombshell that Becky might be his daughter, isn't that shocking? I didn't know where to start to verify anything, but first of all, why did you go to Abby's house? What were you doing there? And what's this about Abby's daughter being possibly your child? Is that some kind of joke? She's just a former colleague, right? I decided to ask these questions. At that time, I didn't even know they were once ex-lovers. Then, in response to this, Bobby said,
Oh, Abby bought some assembly furniture online, but couldn't put it together properly, so I helped her assemble it. They praised me, saying it's good to have a man's touch. And as for Becky, it's still just my speculation. But 6 years ago, Abby was two-timing me. Considering the age, I couldn't help but think, what if? Becky is now 5 years old, so it's possible, right?
He said that. It was then that I learned Abby was his ex-girlfriend. Okay, let's give him the benefit of the doubt with the assembly furniture incident. But isn't the Becky situation a bit alarming? Yeah, the way your husband put it, does that mean their relationship continued when Abby got pregnant? I was curious about that too, so I asked him more about it. It turns out 6 years ago, Abby suddenly broke up with him one day. And the day after they broke up, Abby announced her retirement from the company. Her partner works for a major trading company. Apparently, it was a shotgun wedding. Well, basically, my husband was two-timed. And he wasn't chosen. That's what it boils down to, right? So my husband and Abby broke up 6 years ago. Abby's daughter is now 5 years old. Given that their relationship overlapped when Abby's pregnancy was discovered, my husband might have thought there was a chance he could be the father, right? I mean, there's certainly a possibility, but After hearing all this, I finally expressed my disapproval to my husband. I told him it's not appropriate to meet up with someone he has such a deep history with. You have your own family now, with children who are definitely yours, I said, making it clear to him, but my husband responded with determination.
I want to help Abby, who is raising her child on her own. She's a woman I loved in the past. And if Becky is my daughter, then I should take responsibility for that.
He said this with a resolute look in his eyes. I asked him, did Abby tell you that you're the father? If it were me, I would immediately disclose such an important fact to the other person. Even when I pointed that out, my husband,
Abby is a modest woman. She wouldn't suddenly say, take care of your child now. I don't think she would say something like that. Surely not. Maybe she's waiting for me to realize it.
He says something like that. I was appalled by my husband's foolishness. Could it be that your husband thinks Becky is his daughter? Does she really resemble him that much? No, a modest woman wouldn't cheat. Abby seems to be up to something. Yeah, that's right. No matter what I said after that, my husband just yelled at me.
Heartless. Don't you understand people's feelings? If I'm happy, that's all that matters. Whatever anyone says, I'll take responsibility. I have to make them happy.
He started yelling at me like that. He started going to Abby's house without listening to me, trying to stop him. So at that point, I began considering divorce. I thought I couldn't live with a man like that. But could I take their father away from my young sons? Right now, I'm on childcare leave, but if I divorce and return to work, can I manage on my own? I felt anxious and agonized over it. I hesitated and hesitated. At that time, I didn't divorce quickly and stayed away from my husband, even though I'm going to regret it so much later. While I was hesitating about divorce, my husband did whatever he wanted. Frequently meeting Abby, he reported that to me.
Today I ate Abby's home-cooked meal. Becky said she wanted to eat with me, which was really cute. She begged for a toy and I bought her a one-piece swimsuit. She was so happy about it. She's just so adorable.
That's how it went. At home, he doesn't do anything to take care of our sons. He listens to Becky's wishes and buys her things, even though he doesn't do anything. I was so frustrated by my husband's awful behavior, and I felt sorry and sad for our sons, so I pleaded with him as much as I could. Our sons are definitely your children, so please show them love properly. You don't even know for sure if Abby's daughter is your child, right? You haven't done a DNA test or anything. It's ridiculous. I said, tears streaming down my face. I didn't want to cry for such a despicable husband. Then my husband.
Huh, you're so annoying. Don't talk about things like DNA testing like it's nothing. You really don't have any kindness in you. I can't be with such a cold person. I'm going to Abby's house for a while. I'll live in Abby's warm home. I'm sure Becky will want her father, me.
He said that decisively. And then he started preparing to leave the house quickly. I no longer had any doubts. I strongly wanted to get divorced. I hesitated a little, but I had gathered evidence that would favor me in the divorce. I had made up my mind to confront him with that evidence. But just before I could confront him with the evidence, he looked at our sons and said this.
If only you boys were a bit cuter, then I would have loved you more. Well, Monica only gave birth to boys, after all. Boys aren't cute. They're noisy and annoying. Well then, see ya. I'm off to my adorable daughter's place. Well, I'll come back like once a month or so.
And then I exploded. I thought, what is he saying to my sons? I felt like I might explode with anger, but I held myself back right here. I was determined to make sure he pays for this in hell. So I didn't say anything as I sent him off, and afterward, I hugged my sons tightly. I'm so glad I gave birth to you boys. I love you so much. You're my treasures, I conveyed. The baby, my youngest son, of course didn't understand anything, but my eldest son, who was 3 years old, clung tightly to me. Even if he couldn't understand everything my husband and I said, I think he somehow felt it. I regretted exposing him to such words. That's just awful. Deliberately hurting children like that? You can't forgive scum like that. Absolutely not. Did you eventually bring up divorce at that time? I think it would have been better for the children if she had just left him immediately. He's such scum. I wanted to leave him right away, but I desperately wanted to get revenge somehow, so I didn't bring up divorce at that time. I wanted to be more prepared before confronting him. About a month later, I demanded divorce through a lawyer, and at the same time I confronted my husband with a certain fact. That really sent him straight to hell. First, when I demanded a divorce from him, of course, I also sought compensation for adultery from him and Abby. At that time, as evidence of the affair, I presented a mountain of photos taken by a detective, including one of Abby meeting with another man besides my husband. I casually slipped that in. Abby was meeting multiple men almost on a daily basis. Among them were photos of her dining with another man with Becky, and photos of them spending time together as if they were a family of 3, including Becky. I had hidden photos capturing such scenes. When my lawyer found these photos, my husband started to panic. It seems he began blaming Abby, who was nearby. They had a heated argument in front of the lawyer for a while.
What's this with these guys? They seem pretty chummy. Ugh, they're even holding hands in this photo.
That's not it. It just looks like that from the angle, but they're just acquaintances. I know a lot of people.
But what about this photo? Having dinner with you, Becky. And this one at the amusement park?
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. We're just acquaintances.
It went something like this. There was a tense moment between the two. At that point, the lawyer promptly played a certain testimony.
I broke up with Abby 6 years ago, but recently she reappeared with a child who seems like mine. I think the kid looks like mine, so I am seriously thinking of marrying Abby. Abby, who I suddenly lost touch with 6 years ago, recently came to see me again with her child. That child must be mine. 6 years ago, I was a freelancer chasing my dream. Abby had gone into hiding so she wouldn't be a burden to me. So I have to make Abby happy this time.
Yikes. Is this like a 24-hour surveillance reality show? Sounds like testimony from someone duped by a scam artist, right? 6 years ago, your husband claimed he was caught in a love triangle, but it seems that was just the tip of the iceberg. It's scary, isn't it? I've been doing some digging myself and realized there are really people like this out there. It's sobering. From what I've found, Abby had relationships with 6 men in the past. Now it seems she's bouncing between 4 of them, including my husband. And of course, she's always with her child, Becky. Abby hasn't outright stated it to anyone, but she seems to have hinted that Becky might be your daughter. It looks like she was milking money from these 4 men. Well, my husband had the highest income among those 4, so Abby might have allowed him into her house. My husband had to pay for meals at Abby's house, utilities, or even money buying new furniture. It seems like she was squeezing various things out of him. I think he was treated as a complete wallet. Wow, what a villainous woman. But Becky, who was used like that, is really pitiful. She's only 5 years old, so she probably doesn't understand much about it. So who was Becky's father in the end? Your husband? Actually, Becky is Abby's ex-husband's daughter. So the 4 men Abby was involved with were unrelated. Actually, it seems Abby's ex-husband divorced her due to her infidelity, and they had a big fight over Becky's custody at that time. And so Abby said to her ex-husband,
Actually, Becky is not your child, so I can't give you custody. I'm taking this child to her real father's place, so you must not have any more contact with Becky.
She firmly declared this and forcibly brought Becky along. Because Becky was attached to her dad, she repeatedly sought him out, but Abby told her,
You must behave well to stay with your dad. Understand? You must be cute and smile in front of the uncles you meet. Greet them properly. You absolutely must not talk about your dad.
Becky was persuaded by this and obediently followed Abby's instructions. When I found out about that, tears welled up for Becky. She's just a 5-year-old girl. With no one else to rely on except her parents, Becky must have been desperate. Meanwhile, Abby was using Becky in such a cowardly way to live her life. Abby's ex-husband requested a DNA test to confirm his paternity with Becky. He was preparing to become a single father and had already set up an environment to raise Becky, aiming to reclaim her from Abby. He truly loves Becky and is such a good dad. Abby's ex-husband lent us the DNA test results, which my lawyer then presented to my husband and Abby. When he saw the results, it felt like everything fell apart. He looked at Abby with intense disgust, and it led to a heated argument between them. The details of that argument are too ugly to recount here. In the end, my husband and Abby broke up. Right after that, Abby's ex-husband's lawyer showed up at her place, and Becky was able to return safely to her dad. So now, Abby is apparently living alone, burdened with compensation demands from her ex-husband and me. I actually informed the other men about Abby's true nature, aside from my husband. I heard something about them possibly filing lawsuits against her. Well, I don't really care anymore since I'm not involved anymore. Oh, I see. Becky was able to go back to her dad's place. That's good to hear. This time you were also involved, but it's heartbreaking that the children got caught up in this. Exactly, harming children is unforgivable. I hope they never meet again. So did you end up getting divorced after all? After my husband learned about Abby's true nature, he shamelessly said to me,
I was deceived, but now I see clearly. After all, I only have Monica and the kids.
He begged and pleaded, but my heart didn't budge an inch. In fact, divorce alone didn't satisfy my anger, so I also imposed social sanctions on my husband. I sent reports of his and Abby's infidelity to his company and his parents' home. This led to my husband receiving a pay cut at work and being cut off by his parents.
Why would you do such a thing? You're being so cruel to me. My life has been ruined by terrible women.
He kept blaming others right to the end. It's all his own fault, though. With the help of a lawyer, I finalized the divorce and am now living as a single mother. I am very happy with my 2 sons, but I have some concerns about my oldest son. As I mentioned before, he's now 4 years old. He's become such a good child since I became single. These are heartful words my husband directed at my eldest son. I'm worried they might be affecting him. I'm concerned that he might think he won't be loved unless he behaves perfectly, and I'm unsure how to handle that. It's a mystery whether the eldest son understood the husband's hurtful words. From now on, if Monica loves him with all her heart, everything will be fine. I think maybe he naturally became a good boy after seeing his beloved mom working so hard. It'll be okay. Everyone, thank you. That's right, we shouldn't think dark thoughts. And they're my precious children, so as long as I love them with all my heart, everything will be fine, right? And with my love, I'll embrace any hurt hearts and any tough times ahead. Let's wrap all of those up with love. Mom's love is powerful, you know? Just kidding. Thank you all for listening. I will definitely make my sons happy. Despite having his own family, Monica's husband was completely captivated by his ex-girlfriend. However, the love that captivated his heart turned out to be an illusion, and as a result, he lost all love. I earnestly hope that the children who were caught up in adult matters will be happy in the future without fail. That is my heartfelt wish. One's true place in those who love them. People are often driven by desires and may lose sight of them. Once lost, it becomes something fleeting that disappears. So, I want everyone to firmly find their place.
My husband's childhood friend boasted, "My cooking tastes better." I agreed and left the cooking to her, resulting in a hilarious situation.
My husband's childhood friend said,
Your husband prefers my seasoning.
and started making lunch for my husband every day. My husband Jeffrey was completely won over by her, and no matter how much I warned him, he wouldn't listen. She was delighted to have won over my husband's stomach. One day she arrived at our home with her signature lunches in hand, so as requested, we all enjoyed her lunch together. Would her cooking really appeal to anyone besides my husband? The childhood friend who makes my lunch for my husband every day. She seemed confident in her cooking, so I decided to give it a try. They say life revolves around eating, but preparing meals every day is really tough, especially with growing children or the elderly with smaller appetites. You need to adjust nutrition and portions for each person, and everyone has their dislikes. Preparing meals is truly challenging. To all the homemakers out there, well done. Preparing meals, huh? I find planning the menu more exhausting than actually cooking. I understand. I want to make what the kids like, but then I worry about nutrition and my husband gets bored. I once told my wife, just make something simple and quick, and she totally blew up at me. I regretted that. Everyone's facing their own struggles. Since it's an everyday thing, you can't really escape it. I'm approaching 20 years of marriage soon, and boy, have I done a lot of cooking over these 2 decades. Especially when I lived with my in-laws, we were feeding a family of 6. I had 2 boys during their growth spurts, so they ate a lot. Is that so? Rachel, you're amazing. Even cooking for just the 2 of us keeps me busy. I have nothing but respect. I can't cook at all. Looking back, it was tough, but gathering around the table with the family was always enjoyable. The kids also said they loved my cooking. That alone has kept me going this far. Now, let me share something I want everyone to hear about my husband. It's about my husband and our cooking adventures. Can I start? Oops, did the topic suddenly change direction? I thought we were hearing a nice story about family. Cooking and husbands sounds like a combination that could cause some trouble. Tell us. Thank you. So let's begin. My husband is healthy and in his 40s, just like me. He's a serious company employee, a quiet husband, and a kind father to our children. My ordinary life with such a husband was disrupted when his childhood friend returned to the neighborhood. At the time we were remodeling the house, we shared with my parents-in-law who had passed away, and our family of 4 was living there. It was winter, around the time our eldest son had decided to go to university. Conversations were rife about the eldest son living alone in the spring and whether he would finally leave home. Then one day, a woman visited our house. This was my husband's childhood friend, Allison. When Allison came to visit, we were just having dinner as a family of 4 around the table. When the intercom rang, I went to answer it, and there was Allison, introducing herself as my husband's childhood friend. I quickly went to get my husband, and the two of them started chatting nostalgically.
Allison, it's been a while. Are you visiting home?
I moved back to my parents' home yesterday, so I thought I'd come say hello to a certain mister who lives nearby and let him know I'll be around.
Allison, you got married and moved out of town, right? You moved back. Are your parents sick or something?
Well, I'm worried about my parents, but the truth is, I'm getting a divorce. We've decided to live separately.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry, Allison. I shouldn't have pried.
The word divorce made my husband speechless. I didn't know what to say either, and an awkward atmosphere filled the air. And then, to dispel this atmosphere, my husband...
Hey, wanna come up? I'll introduce you to my sons,
he said, trying to smooth things over. I was like, huh? In my mind. But contrary to my feelings, Allison boldly said,
Yay! Is it okay? Then I'll gladly accept your offer. Excuse me, coming through.
And she confidently went upstairs. Now it was my turn to feel flustered. Looks like a troublesome childhood friend has appeared. It's her first appearance, but I'm not a fan of Allison. Did Allison greet you, Rachel? Did she just ignore you, who is Jeffrey's wife? Yeah, that's right. Thanks everyone for understanding. To be honest, I couldn't help but think, who is this woman? As you pointed out, Allison completely ignored me. Even when she came into the house, she didn't even bother to check with me. So my first impression of Allison was the worst. Allison barged into our dining table.
Good evening. Are those boys adorable? They look so much like their father. And Jeffrey, haven't you turned into quite the handsome man? You used to be chubby, but still cute back in the day,
she said with a teasing tone, and the boys just stared blankly. Further after,
meat and potatoes, grilled fish, and spinach? That's it. Feels just like my mom's cooking. I haven't had such a retro meal in a while. It's so nostalgic.
Oh, what an incredibly rude thing to say. After making all those cutesy high-pitched remarks, Allison quickly scurried away. An unpleasant atmosphere then settled over our dinner table.
Who was that person? Their perfume was so strong. Could you please open a window? It's overwhelming my appetite. Is this a retro meal? I love it, but I wonder if it's something to be laughed at. Sorry about that. Allison is my childhood friend, but she's always been high energy.
That's what my husband said to my sons, but I'm absolutely offended by Allison's comment. I definitely felt there was hostility towards me. I'll explain later why Allison showed such hostility towards me, but anyway, Allison suddenly appeared like this and disrupted our family life. A few days after Allison came to greet us after moving, my husband came home with an unfamiliar lunchbox, and with the appearance of that lunchbox, the bell rang for my battle with Allison. Hey, what's with that lunchbox?
Oh, this? Allison gave it to me this morning. Man, it was delicious.
Huh? Allison made lunch for you? Why would she do that?
Well, it seems she remembered my favorite food and made it for me.
My husband said gleefully with a grin, but I was just left wondering, why? So when I questioned my husband about it, it turned out that since the day of that meeting, Allison had been waiting for my husband in front of the house when he leaves for work.
Good morning. Do your best at work today.
It seems she was seeing off my husband like this every day, and today she handed him a lunchbox at that moment. If you think about it normally, it's a strange sight. Handing over a lunchbox seems intentional. And the husband who eats that lunchbox is also strange, right? Didn't Rachel make lunch for her husband? Well, you see, I haven't been making lunch for my husband. He mentioned a few years ago.
There are days with lunch meetings, and sometimes colleagues or subordinates invite me to eat out. On the flip side, there are times I'm too busy to take a lunch break. If I can't eat it, it's a waste, so it's okay with a lunchbox.
He said that, so I stopped making it. So maybe Allison observed my husband's belongings every morning and noticed that he didn't have a lunchbox. Did she then give him a lunchbox? Even though it's Allison we're talking about, I was still angry with my husband for accepting it so easily. So I told him firmly, if you need a lunchbox, I'll make it. So don't accept Allison's lunchbox anymore. I made that clear to him. Despite that, you know. From that day on, my husband brought home Allison's lunchbox almost every day.
Well, she went through the trouble of making it, so I'd be in a fix if I didn't take it.
He said that with a troubled expression, but his twisted smirk clearly showed he was pleased. He's completely swept off his feet, isn't he? I thought he might end up having an affair like this. So determined to put a stop to my husband's reckless behavior, I followed my husband to work and confronted him the moment Allison handed him the lunch. You said I would make the lunches, right?
Oh no, Rachel, what are you doing here?
Oh my, it's your wife, isn't it? Are you talking about the lunch? It's all right. Since your husband enjoys it so much, it gives me joy to make it too.
Oh no, that's not good. It's not proper for someone else to make my husband's lunch. You said you didn't eat lunch today, didn't you? So why are you accepting this person's lunch? Why lie to me and eat this person's lunch?
Rachel, please, calm down. Allison made it out of kindness.
Oh my, your husband lied about not needing lunch and chose to have my lunch instead. Isn't that what it all boils down to, dear? Your husband prefers my lunch over yours, because he told me so. He said your cooking is too bland.
Huh? Did you really say that?
Well, sorry, but Allison's lunches are full of my favorite fried pork and fried chicken. The seasoning is just how I like it, so I couldn't resist.
Fried pork? Fried chicken? Didn't your recent health check show some concerning results? You need to watch your fat intake. Eating those kind of things is not good for you.
You're always so preachy. Food made by someone like you isn't delicious anyway. I'll continue making lunch for your husband. Your husband seems to like my seasoning, huh?
Allison said triumphantly as she finished saying all this and promptly left the scene. And there I was, left with my husband. Naturally, I blamed my husband. Why did Allison say all that to me? Who does she think she is, barging into our conversation like that?
No, Rachel, don't blame Allison. She's doing it to please me.
It's weird even if you're childhood friends. Making handmade lunches for a married man? Anyway, please stop it now. And don't eat that lunch either. When I was at my wit's end, trying to take the lunch from my husband, he stopped me. And then...
Allison made it for me. It's none of your business.
With that, he stormed off. Seeing him like that, I was convinced. I wanted to prevent cheating, but it was already too late. Since there was still no evidence that they were cheating, I decided to investigate a little. Of course, I intended to divorce. During that time, I kept silent to my husband. I didn't make any lunches either, and I didn't talk to my husband more than necessary. I didn't mention Allison at all. Then, thinking he was relieved that I didn't say anything, my husband continued to bring home Allison's lunch boxes. It was frustrating, but I endured it to keep my husband on the hook. I really wanted to quickly investigate my husband's affair and proceed with the divorce, but at that time, there was something else I wanted to prioritize more than my husband. I decided to focus on that first. It is about my eldest son who is leaving home to go to college. Preparing for his move was my top priority, and in no time the day came when my eldest son moved out. It was supposed to be a very emotional day for me, but then Allison appeared again. It seemed like my husband invited her. On the day of my eldest son's move, many people, including neighborhood mom friends, my son's friends, came to help. And as everyone was diligently working, suddenly Allison showed up. Allison appeared with a large lunchbox in hand and said,
I made lunch for everyone today, so shall we have lunch soon?
That's what she proposed. My husband quickly moved next to Allison.
Allison worked enthusiastically since this morning, making various things. Let's all eat together. Allison's cooking is delicious, you know,
he said with a smirk, and he was impressing the mom friends and my son's friends, but Allison never reached the air.
It seems like Rachel here isn't good at cooking. So recently Jeffrey has become addicted to my cooking. Come on everyone, please enjoy. Isn't it nice, dear? Please leave it to me today.
Because she said it with such confidence, I decided I wanted to see Allison's skills for myself. So I said, okay then. Allison, please take care of today's lunch. And I encouraged my sons to eat the lunch Allison had made.
What's this dish? I've never seen it before.
This is pad thai, a Thai dish. And here are fresh spring rolls.
Smells a little... I can't eat it. Is this bread? It's filled with all sorts of things.
This is my specialty sandwich, Rachel. Doesn't it look pretty? It looks great, doesn't it? It's very filling.
It's a bit hard to eat. It all spilled out.
The hungry kids, especially my sons, struggled with Allison's cooking. Of course, there were Allison's special fried pork and fried chicken that my husband said were delicious, but...
This fried chicken is too salty. I need water. And this fried pork over here smells kinda weird.
That's a cutlet. The batter has cheese mixed into it. It's kind of Italian style and really delicious.
And so everyone was not eating at all. Then my youngest son, who had had enough, said,
Mom, you were preparing lunch since this morning, right? For everyone? Can't you bring that out? I want to eat that.
He started saying that. I brought out the lunch I made and started offering it to everyone. Then, well, not to brag, but everyone's appetite picked up and they kept eating and eating.
The sushi roll is delicious. One more. It's tacos. I really love this.
It went on like that, and everyone kept clearing their plates. My youngest son, innocently enough,
Hey Allison, how about you try some of my mom's lunch? You'll be surprised at how delicious it is.
Brian enthusiastically urged Allison to try his lunch, leaving her slightly perplexed. Allison, however, stubbornly refused to eat my lunch. And in the end, my lunchbox was empty, while Allison's still had leftovers.
Why is your lunch better than mine? I'm more stylish and I put more effort into the taste too. Ugh, these people must have no taste buds.
Allison grumbled in frustration, but then my youngest son chimed in.
Actually, Dad is the one with no taste buds. It's been like that since I was a kid. Grandma says so too. My mom, she's a cooking YouTube star. She's very popular with over 100,000 channel subscribers.
He firmly countered. Allison was wide-eyed in astonishment. So Rachel's husband is officially taste blind? That's why Allison's cooking was okay then. No wait, Rachel's a YouTuber? A cooking channel? That's impressive. Well, actually what the younger son said is true. My husband seems to have been taste blind since he was young. Anyway, he preferred strongly flavored foods and apparently he was quite chubby during his student days. But my mother-in-law was worried about him, so she studied cooking intensively and implemented thorough nutritional management. Thanks to that, my husband has been able to maintain good health. And after we got married, I took over that role. My mother-in-law was worried about my husband's diet and gave me various advice. So following her example, I made sure to provide my husband with healthy meals. Well, when dining out with colleagues or friends, it seems he preferred strongly flavored foods. I would adjust his overindulgence when we got home, and that's the stance I've taken to support him all this time. So becoming a cooking researcher and YouTuber was really an extension of that. Everyone wants their family to eat healthy meals, but figuring out what's ideal can be challenging, right? And since my mother-in-law taught me about this, I decided to share it through videos. Like meals that are good to eat after consuming too many calories the day before, or how to make delicious chicken soup with less salt. Fortunately, those videos caught on and I became somewhat famous as a YouTuber. Of course, my husband knew about all this. I wonder if I ever told Allison about it. So that's how it was. Rachel is amazing. I want to see that YouTube video. Your husband is a scoundrel. Allison must be embarrassed. She was trying to one-up the cooking expert with her own cooking. Yeah, Allison's face turned red when she found out the truth. It seems Allison also knows about my channel.
Why didn't you tell me? I can't compete with a popular cooking expert.
Now she's angry with my husband. My husband looked embarrassed and flustered when she was angry with him. After that, Allison left in a huff, and my husband followed after her, looking ashamed. Finally, it felt like the nuisance was gone. Afterward, we diligently finished the moving preparations, and my son and friends went ahead to the new house. After seeing off the moving truck, I continued preparing to go to my eldest son's new home. Just then, my husband returned home. It seemed Allison had torn him to shreds verbally. He returned home looking completely dejected. I confronted him with reality. I'm going to my eldest son's new home now. And then I'll go to our new home too.
Huh? What do you mean?
Oh, well, my youngest son and I are also moving to a different house starting today. So it was a major moving preparation, right? I'm grateful that you came to help us.
Huh? Huh? What does that mean? So you and the youngest son are leaving too?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, could you just write this down? My lawyer will come to pick it up later, so could you have it ready by then?
Huh? Is this divorce papers? Why? Why?
Because you cheated with Allison, isn't that why? There's plenty of evidence, so there's no excuse.
Allison was just making me lunches. Yeah, I was just making lunches. Yeah.
What are you mumbling about? It's not just that kind of relationship, right? I investigated, you know. I didn't have time, so I even asked a detective. There's plenty of photographic evidence. Look at this, for example. There's no escaping this. When I confronted my husband with evidence of the affair, he gave in right there.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rachel. It escalated a bit, or rather, things got out of hand. Allison was so diligently making me lunches. Somehow I started to feel happy.
That may be true, but cheating is cheating. I won't forgive that. And I absolutely won't forgive Allison either.
I'm done with that. I won't even eat the lunches, so please forgive me.
No way, I will never forgive you. I've already told Allison's husband about the affair, so maybe Allison's husband will ask for alimony. Of course, I'll also make a claim. I'll also claim child support for our sons. You need to fulfill those responsibilities properly.
No, Rachel, please don't leave me. I can't give you alimony. It was just a little affair.
It wasn't just a little affair. Once is enough for me. Well, I'm leaving now. Oh, by the way, you've gotten a bit fatter lately, haven't you? You'll have to take care of your own health from now on. And with that, I left. I hurried to my eldest son's new home. As soon as I found out about my husband's affair, I told my sons about my decision to get a divorce. My sons had noticed my husband's strange behavior lately. They were understanding about my decision to divorce, and my youngest son said he would come with me. So I had decided to move out of this house with my youngest son on the day of my eldest son's move. I had already hired a lawyer to handle the divorce. Allison was still living separately from her husband and was receiving financial support from him, even though the divorce was not yet finalized. And in that situation, she had an affair. Allison's husband was quite angry. In the first place, Allison had brought up the idea of divorce to her husband because he had gained over 20 kilograms since their wedding. And it seemed that the reason was that he had recently become ill and had to take a leave of absence from work. Allison said,
"He's gotten fat and ugly and he can't work anymore. There's no benefit in being married to someone like this."
She seemed to say that and stormed out of the house. I knew, but what a terrible woman. And then upon returning, she had a reunion with my husband. Allison only knew my husband from the old days when he was chubby. It seems she wanted to snatch him away after seeing him slimmed down and refreshed, so it seems she had animosity towards me from the beginning. Allison is unbelievable. She abandoned her husband as soon as he fell ill. Allison's husband got fat and sick because of Allison's dangerous cooking. That might be true. In fact, my husband started eating Allison's cooking and got fat again. After that, my husband and I divorced and he paid me proper compensation. I intend to collect child support properly from now on. My husband is whining, but he'll have to tough it out. And in the end, Allison also got divorced and paid compensation. It seems Allison was kicked out of her parents' house and now lives with my husband. I wonder if those two will stay together like this. So they're living together after all? Well, maybe Allison just had nowhere else to go. But is your husband okay? Will he keep eating Allison's cooking? Even though you and your mother-in-law were careful about health. Well, that's true. It's surprising they're living together, but maybe they had no other choice. And from what I've heard from acquaintances, my ex-husband seems to be getting fatter. It's really surprising how quickly things went downhill, despite all the effort he put into it. Right now, I'm living peacefully with my younger son. Almost every day, I receive photos of the dishes he cooked that day from my eldest son. My eldest son is living a healthy lifestyle on his own. I feel really proud and happy about his growth. Lately, even my younger son seems to be interested in cooking. Now he's been joining me more often in the kitchen. Recently, we even started posting videos of simple recipes we make together, just the two of us. I'm enjoying my life. I'm determined to continue working hard to protect my family's health. For 20 years of marriage, Rachel had been attentive to her husband's health through daily meals. However, due to the sudden lunchbox attacks from his childhood friend, her husband went straight down an unhealthy path. From now on, her husband will surely long for the healthy lifestyle Rachel provided. But it was her husband who gave that up. Now, he has no choice but to manage on his own. Health is built up day by day, meal by meal. So if you're living healthily every day now, there must be someone supporting your health. Keep this truth in your heart and live each day to the fullest.